It's time for Back in the Library, and I have a very special guest today. Can you tell who it is? What it's Yes, it's Happy St. Patrick's Day. We're going to have some St. Patrick's Day stories, and maybe you can celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's coming up on Thursday. So, the first story I'm going to read is called A Fine St. Patrick's Day. And it has a leprechaun. Looks a little bit different than the one on our tree, but it's by Susan Wojciechowski and illustrated by Tom Curry. Very green, very Irish looking slopes, sheep and cows. Fine St. Patrick's Day. So what would be a fine St. Patrick's Day for you? What do you think? What about for Leprechaun? For as far back as anyone could remember, the towns of Trelealee and Tralala had been rivals. Every year on St. Patrick's Day, they had a contest to see which town could decorate best for the holiday. And though the people of Tralee tried their hardest, they never won. The prize, a golden trophy in the shape of a shamrock, was always awarded to Trala. Each year, when the winner was announced by the official country judge, the people of Tralee sighed and said, "Next year we'll win, to be sure." The people of Trela laughed at him. "No, you won't. You've always lost, and you always will," they said. What do you think? One year, the mayor of Tralee rang the bell in the town square, calling all the townspeople to gather. When everyone was there, he said, "Little Fiona Riley, though she's but a wee lass of 6, has come up with a fine idea for this year's contest. We'll win, to be sure, but only if everyone agrees to it." Little Fiona's plan was to paint everything in the town bright green. "'Tis a fine idea," said Emily O'Fallon. "But will all our houses be painted green?" "Yes," said the mayor. "'Tis surely a fine idea," said Reverend Flattery. "But will even the churches be green?" "Yes." "'Tis a most excellent idea," said Brogan O'Neill, the school principal. "But will the school be green?" What do you think? School gonna be green? "Oh, yes," said the mayor. "Everything right down to the wee dog houses will be painted green." "Except for the mailboxes," said Mr. Root, the postmaster. "They are government property." "And the fire hydrants," added Captain Blazes, the fire chief. "They must stay yellow to be seen." A hush came over the crowd as the townspeople thought about the plan. When the mayor asked how many wanted to paint the town green, everyone shouted and cheered and whooped and hollered and said, "'Tis a fine idea. This year we'll win, to be sure." They agreed that little Fiona Riley's name should be engraved on the trophy. The people of Tralee bought painters' hats and coveralls. They bought brushes and rollers. They rummaged through basements and sheds for ladders and buckets, and little Fiona was allowed to choose the shade of green they would use: emerald isle, limerick green, lime, or Galvary green. Fiona chose limerick lime. Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, who owned the hardware store, ordered hundreds and hundreds of gallons of limerick lime paint. Meanwhile, the people of Trela were planning too. They decided to cut shamrocks from green cardboard, sprinkle them with glitter, and hang them from every branch of every tree in town. Oh my gosh, sounds like a lot of work to me. So, these little shamrocks, what do you think? They be pretty? On the day before St. Patrick's Day, as everyone in Tralee and Trelaw was busy working on decorations, a little man on a large horse came galloping across the meadows. He wore red trousers, a brown leather apron, and boots decorated with gold bells. His beard came down to his stomach. Pointed ears stuck out beneath the brim of his hat, and his horse had long satin ribbons braided into its mane. Oh my gosh, pretty fancy. So who do you think he is? It's all this green. Can you guess? The man turned toward Trelaw and stopped at Mrs. Donegal's house at the edge of town. He pounded on the front door. Mrs. Donegal's, scissors in hand, answered. Frantically, the little man asked, "Begging your pardon, can you help me? I was leading my cows across the river, and sure and begorra, they are stuck in the mud." "You picked the wrong day to ask for help," said Mrs. McDonald sharply. "I'm cutting shamrocks." She shut the door in his face. There she is. The stranger hurried to the next house. When Mr. O'Leary answered the door, the little man asked, "Begging your pardon, can you help me? I was leading my cows across the river, and sure and begorra, they're stuck in the mud." "Away with you," said Mrs. O'Leary. "I'm busy cutting string from our shamrocks." "The river is cold. My cows won't last much longer, to be sure," said the stranger. But Mr. O'Leary had shut the door and gone back to measuring his lengths of string. At the third house, the little man asked again, "Begging your pardon, can you help me? I was leading my cows across the river, and sure and begorra, they are stuck in the mud." The McLeans, their hands covered with glitter and glue, looked annoyed. "Don't you know what day this is?" Mr. McLean asked. "We're busy getting ready to beat Trelaw in the contest." At every house, the stranger was turned away. Ugh. They apparently really wanted to win this year. Finally, he crossed the field into Tralee. At the first house he came upon, he asked, "Begging your pardon, can you help me? I was leading my cows across the river, and sure and begorra, they are stuck in the mud." Mary Kate Driscoll was on her ladder, paintbrush in hand. Her coveralls were splattered with Limerick lime paint. Her face was smudged with Limerick lime blotches. She climbed down, looked at the little man. She looked up at her house. She scratched her head. "Follow me," Mary Kate said. You think she's going to help him? She's saying, "Follow me." She wasn't frowning and telling him to go away. She ran to the town square and rang the doorbell until the townspeople came wearing coveralls and painters' hats. The little man yelled out to the crowd, "Begging your pardon, can you help me? I was leading my cows across the river, and, sure and begorra, they are stuck in the mud." "But what about our painting?" someone shouted. "What about the contest?" called another voice. "This is the year we will win for sure." "What about the trophy?" a third person called out. Little Fiona Riley was sitting atop her father's shoulders, listening. She looked down at the people all splattered with Limerick lime paint. She thought of the golden trophy. She thought about having her name engraved on it. Finally, she called out in a voice loud and clear, "But what about the cows? We need to help the cows." Hush came over the crowd as everyone considered what little Fiona had said. "'Tis a fine idea," said Emily O'Fallon. "'Tis surely a fine idea," said Reverend Flattery. "'Tis a most excellent idea," said Brogan O'Neill. When the mayor took a vote of how many people wanted to help the stranger, every hand went up. The crowd shouted, "Yay!" and they cheered, "Yay!" whooped, and hollered. All the people of Tralee headed for the river. The children, the old folks, and families with babies. They went in wagons, on bicycles, and on foot. As they crossed the meadow, they heard the sound of cowbells. Ting, ding, ding, ting, 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 ling, ling. And when they reached the river, sure and begorra, there were the little old man's cows stuck in the mud. Everyone pushed and pulled and tugged. One by one, the cows were freed from the mud at the bottom of the river. The sun had long set by the time the people of Tralee got back to their homes and fell into bed, tired and wet. "Oh, well, next year we'll win to be sure," said the mayor to his wife as he sank into a deep, snoring sleep. The following morning, the people of Tralee woke up to the sound of the bell ringing in the town square. They ran outside in their pajamas and nightgowns, and in the case of old Mr. Murphy, bright red long underwear. What they saw was so incredible they could barely believe their eyes. Every inch of Tralee was green, sparkling, shimmering, glimmering, glorious green, from the wee doghouses to the tall spire of the church, except for the mailboxes being government property and the fire hydrants, which remained yellow so they could be seen. The people of Tralee shouted "Yay!" and cheered "Yay!" and "Woo!" and hollered "Yay!" This year we'll win to be sure. So do you think they would win St. Patrick's Day trophy? And they did. When the official country judge rode through the two towns, he declared Tralee to be the winner and handed the mayor the prize. The trophy case in the town hall was no longer empty. It held one golden shamrock, which would soon be engraved with little Fiona's name. As the St. Patrick's Day supper of lamb and boiled potatoes was set out in the town hall, the mayor asked some of the townspeople to find the stranger and invite him to the party. They rode across the meadow, beyond the river, and as far as the peat bog, but they could not find the little man or his cows. All they found was a single cowbell. It was made of shining gold. And though the people of Tralee passed the golden cowbell from hand to hand and talked throughout supper about the glimmering, glorious green miracle, no one could account for what had happened. All they could remember was the tinkling sound of the little man's boots and the beautiful ribbons in his horse's mane. Little Fiona Riley remembered that when the man thanked her at the river, he said, "You have already won." As the sun began to sink below the hills, the town slowly faded back to its real colors. 'Twas a fine St. Patrick's Day, the mayor said. He took the golden shamrock from the trophy case and put it into little Fiona Riley's hands. Everyone shouted, "Yay!" and cheered, "Yay!" and whooped and hollered, "Oh!" Well, a year when it came time to plan how to win the contest, little Fiona Riley, though she was but a wee lass of 7, had an idea. When the idea was put to a vote, everyone shouted and cheered and whooped and hollered. That St. Patrick's Day and every year afterward, though they would take the shamrock and the golden cowbell out of the trophy case and polish them, the people of Tralee would no longer compete with Trela to win another trophy. They would decorate their town, share a meal of lamb and boiled potatoes, simply for the joy of it. 'Twas a fine idea, to be sure. So why did they want to share a fine meal? Why didn't they want to compete anymore? If you have an idea, add your comment on Facebook. I'd love to hear what you think. Why they didn't want to compete anymore? It's because they didn't want to lose it? And if that was only because they didn't want to lose, then why did they invite the other town over for a meal? What was that all about? Maybe they decided they found something better than competing, do you think? Maybe they liked eating together. So this is called Natasha Wings the Night Before St. Patrick's Day. Art by Amy Walmer. So it's the night before St. Patrick's Day. So what could happen on the night before? Look. Illustrated by Amy Walmer. It's by Natasha Wing. 'Twas the night before St. Patrick's Day, the day to wear green. Not a creature was stirring except Tim, a Marine. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Even the dogs saying there was eye half open. They decked out the den from ceiling to floor with streamers and rainbows and shamrocks galore. Happy St. Patrick's Day, it says. Later they carefully made traps with golden charms. Some gold charms and rings. I bet you we catch a leprechaun. They love shiny things. For if they caught one, so the legend told, they'd find where he buried his big pot of gold. So the leprechaun have to tell him where he buried his pot of gold? They caught it? Try to get him to let it loose? They set all the traps round the room with great care, and hopes a wee Irishman soon would be theirs. There's all their traps. From a hanger, and then they have a box that says enter. And this is a mailbox with a gold coin hanging out of it, some shamrocks, some tissues. Lucky leprechaun slide. Ooh, there's a slide to go down. How would they get out of that slide? The children then nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of golden coins danced in their heads. Dreaming about gold coins? I think the dog's dreaming about a bone. What do you think? Happy St. Patty's, said Dad early the next morning. Then he started to play bagpipes without warning. He huffed and he puffed an old Irish song. Mom dished out green eggs and sang loudly along. Like green eggs? Like green eggs in ham? When from their bedroom there arose such a clatter, the kids ran down the hallway to see what was the matter. And what to their wondering eyes should appear? What do you think they saw? What did they see? But a terrible mess. A leprechaun was here. Oh my gosh. Look at that mess. Uh-oh. Be quiet, whispered Maureen. He's hiding somewhere. When we find him, remember, we must hold his stare. For if you look away, if you so much as blink, leprechauns vanish, quick as a wink. The kids trailed muddy footprints back and forth across the hall. The floor, which led them under Tim's bed and past the closet door. And then inside a trap, they heard someone giggling, a real live leprechaun. They both saw him wiggling. His eyes, how they twinkled, his body so tiny. His hand clasped a trinket so golden and shining. He was dressed all in green from his head to his toes, and he looked like a cobbler wearing fairy-sized clothes. The children approached him, staring straight in his eyes. Tell us where the gold is. Don't be tricky. No lies. I buried it under a rock, smooth and hard. It's marked with an X right in your backyard. So it's in their backyard? Buried his treasure in their backyard? Maybe that's why he's there? But when the kids went outside with their shovel and pick, they instantly saw it had been a big trick. So, where's the X? It's everywhere on all the stones. So, what do you think? What do you think? Happy St. Patrick's Day! I fooled you. It's time to disappear. Happy St. Patty's Day to you, and better luck next year. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed these two stories, and I hope you you can plan your own St. Patrick's Day trap. Would you? How could you make a trap to catch a leprechaun? And would you have gold coins that you could leave to get to trick him? Or you could use, they also like 4-leaf clovers. What else do they like? Gold shiny things? Anything like that? Maybe a pot of gold? And then you could trap a leprechaun. So I hope you have fun on St. Patrick's Day, and maybe the night before you could try to set up your own trap to trap a leprechaun, because if you stare, if you find him, you have to stare in his eyes, and you can't do what? Can't blink. Because if you blink, he can get away. So maybe he'll tell you where he left his pot of gold. So this is Bonnie Baldock wishing you a happy and healthy day. Goodbye.